Last night, I went to Swedish House Mafia's Paradise Again World Tour in Toronto at Scotiabank Arena, and it was amazing. I have so many thoughts, so many reactions. There's a lot of video that I did take, so I'm going to probably overlay that within this video. This video is going to be a two-parter. Part one is going to be the fan experience or the super fan experience, and then part two is going to be the critic, because there are things that I identified and noticed that could be improved. But yeah, we'll get to that. So let's get started. It's going to be kind of like a podcast kind of style video format for this one. I've got a lot to say, so buckle in. If you're ready for SHM, you're going to know all about what to expect and how the fan experience was. But let's get started. Let's talk about the fan experience. So obviously, I'm a Swedish House Mafia super fan, and it was just so amazing. I think if you're a fan, a super fan, if you've been around with Swedish House Mafia forever, or even if you've been around my channel since 2018, you're gonna love the show. If you've been thinking about going, or if you have tickets, go. It was nostalgic. It was perfect. The way they integrated their old stuff with their new stuff. There's so many different mashups that I think really worked with their just Paradise Again sound mixed with like their, old school stuff that the Swedish House Mafia fans would know, or just electronic music fans would know. The production was good. There was fire. There was lights. There were so many strobes. The Swedish House Mafia circle or that was above them looked really cool. I think that's a really great artistic creative decision to make it look really epic. It was suspended and had a lot of movement throughout the show, so that was really cool. It started off with a curtain drop. So let's back up a little bit. So the show starts off with a curtain drop. So if you're there for the one last tour, you'd be familiar with the curtain drop. And I think it's still one of my favorite ways to start a show. It's just such an epic start to it. I don't think the curtain drop for the Paradise Again show was as epic as their one last tour curtain drop, because it kind of kicked off with Greyhound. And they did kind of start off with Greyhound and Can You Feel It? But I think that it didn't hit as hard. But again, that's not really what this Paradise Again sound tour is really about. It was a lot more low tempo and showing off the new album, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But definitely a really cool moment. They played all of their hits, I would say, from Miami to Ibiza, One, Greyhound, Save the World, Don't You Worry Child, and it was such a... It's hard to describe the energy that was inside the building, because I think all of the Swedish House Mafia fans who really love their old stuff and have this affinity for that era of the early 2010s to the 2020s Swedish House Mafia. It's just so passionate, and I think there's a lot of love for the music. And there's a couple clips I'll throw in here, and you could hear the entire arena kind of just singing along to Save the World, One, Miami to Ibiza, Don't You Worry Child, Reload, which was another massive track within their sets. And it was just really nice. It was nice to have this nostalgicness to a show and just, I guess, remember kind of like that golden era and what life was like, and, just throwing back to this. So it was really cool. There's two openers. I know I'm kind of all over the place, but surprise, surprise. There was Jay Mora. I didn't get to see her. That would have been nice, but I didn't get there on time. And then it was Zoo with the opening, I guess being the second opener before SHM took the stage, and great opener. Good opener. He was kind of played more as like a band, and I haven't heard really of Zoo since Faded, which is one of his breakout tracks, and it was nice to kind of get familiar with Zoo's production and work. I think something special in all Swedish House Mafia sets is Axel on the mic. And if you're a fan, I think you kind of just enjoy hearing Axel on the mic and just, doing what he does of, "This is Axel and we love you, Toronto," kind of thing. It was also his kid's birthday last night, so that was cool. And he said that he was in the building. I think he turned 9, which was kind of cool, because imagine if your dad's Axel or part of Swedish House Mafia. Such a cool dad job.
It's my 9-year-old son's birthday this year. So happy birthday, Anton. This is how Toronto says happy birthday. And thank you for that. And thank you for having us. And right now, I feel like we should take Toronto home.
So let's compare it to the One Last Tour from a fan's perspective. So I did go to the One Last Tour when they did make their Toronto stop, and coincidentally, and just funnily enough, my relationship with Swedish House Mafia has always been a good one. We'll see when it comes to the criticism, but from a fan, it's been really cool, because the last time they toured in Toronto was February 2013, and last time around I won tickets on the radio. Fast forward to the Paradise Again show, I also won tickets on that same radio station, so it's been kind of cool to see that, like, if SHM is touring in Toronto, maybe I'll just try and get tickets listening to the radio. So back to the One Last Tour, I think it just has a different energy. And I think what really stood out to me is that Swedish House Mafia had this incredible dominance and power back in 2013 and the early 2010s, where they went on tour with like 5-6 tracks and a compilation. So to see that they could fill the Rogers Centre, which is the largest venue in Toronto, 2 nights. So it was 30,000 on the Friday, 30,000 on the Saturday, and they filled up both nights back in 2013 with not a lot of music. And this time around, I think the articles about the ticket sales and the not selling out is fairly accurate, I would say. It was fairly full around the bowls and in the upper sections in the Scotiabank Arena, but the floor was a little sparse and a little spaced out towards the back, so I thought it would be a little more full. But I think that's where, you take this approach as a band versus DJs, and you can be both. But I think if you are touring like a band where you have a specific set list instead of just these are tracks from the album that we want to play, this is tracks from the old era of SHM that we want to play, instead of just this really freestyle experience. And I think that's a important distinction, where through this 2013 One Last Tour time of SHM, they were just playing whatever. They were more DJs, I would say, versus a band. And I think that's, obviously the SHM sound has evolved, but the fan experience, I would say, has also changed a little bit, where it's a little more low tempo, not as 128 progressive kind of things that we, or that main stage sound that we, used to know. But I'm okay with that. But it was genuinely nice to see the old tracks being played. The entire crowd was singing, and it was just a really nice atmosphere. Into the streets, we're coming around. We never sleep, never get tired. To every beat, it's a burning light. Turn the clock now, we'll never back down. Shoot that skyline, run to the prime time. Turn off the light now, listen up now, turn off the light. Who's gonna say? I did feel, though, that the set was short, and I think it was kind of surprising, where I went with a friend and a buddy, and we were also at the One Last Tour show, and I think it was nice to be able to compare both experiences and just relive kind of that era and that feeling of the early 2010s and the electronic music, house music, EDM that came with that. but the set felt short. It's like, because we were talking as Don't You Worry Child was playing, and it was only about 90 minutes, and it was like, they don't have anything left. And that's what my friend said, and he was right. Because I was thinking, yeah, they played everything. There's no encore, which, not surprised, but during the One Last Tour, they had an encore with Save the World, and, it was just an epic ending to it. And it, obviously, Don't You Worry Child is a nice way to go out for SHM, but it just felt like I wanted more, which I think, means it's a good show, but from comparing an artist or band show where it's like, oh, okay, that was, a decent set, but I think the inner, electronic music fan and DJ and myself was like, I wish they would have played a little longer, because I would have liked to see what they want to curate and what music they find interesting. And obviously they have to push their album, and they have certain, responsibilities, obligations to meet with their labels and every business arrangement that they have. But I wanted a lot more. Like, it would have been really fun if they would just went for 3 hours and just would have went wild. But that wasn't the case. So I was happy with the show, but it just felt like I wanted more. And I think talking about the ticket sales and, the cancellations and everything like that, I know for the Toronto show, when the show was first announced, because, like I said, I won tickets, so I didn't have to worry about buying tickets. So I'm super fortunate and lucky to have that. But it's like, okay, so we didn't, have to pay for tickets. So maybe we spend the money and look for floor seats, or, the general admission on the floor. But when we were initially looking, it was $800 for the floor. And I don't know what the ticket pricing was in other venues, other cities, other countries. I guess they've just done US and Canada right now, but that's a lot. That's a lot for a 90-minute Swedish House Mafia set. And I just don't think that's worth it. So I think a couple weeks ago, I've been kind of monitoring ticket prices. And then we also looked yesterday to see, okay, so how full is it going to be? Are we going to have space up in the 300s? Do we want to, look to move to the floor? But ultimately, we decided against it. General admission for the floor was still around $220 Canadian. So it's not terrible, but for the show that it was, I was really content with where we were. As you can see by the videos, we still had good seats, great seats, and there's no problem with that. But let's switch over to some criticism from the show. Okay, into some criticism and more or less my review from an unbiased fan perspective, more of a music industry perspective. Like I said, I thought the set was a little short, but I think that's just what we get, I guess, in North America for being a commercial artist, where 90-minute sets are appropriate, are sufficient, are good. But I think just being from the world of electronic music, it just felt short. But I think if it was a festival set, you'd be completely fine with it. But it was a Swedish House Mafia show, so I think I would have liked to see a much longer set. And that might not be how it works within the industry, but I would have liked to see, what they want to mix into their set. It was very much a producer set, so it was either production from Swedish House Mafia, Steve Angelo, Axel, or Sebastian Grasso, but I want to see what they want to play and what they think is the sound that's really cool right now, and the curation of it. If you've seen an Axel set, I always go back to his 2016 Ultra Singapore set, where he had an incredible set. So I'll link it below, but it's a set that I go back to a lot just because it was just a wild set where there's just so much in the set, from different sounds, different styles. He mixed in Swedish House Mafia stuff, Axel and Grasso stuff. There was something for everyone. And that was, probably another 90-minute set from Axel, but it was different from the perspective of just, really showcasing being a DJ versus being an artist. And I think that's where I guess I'm not conflicted, but I understand that there's a line between a band and a DJ, or at least a DJ set versus a concert series or a concert set, where, you have the set list, all the stuff is programmed and everything like that. But the most recent show before Swedish House Mafia was actually a show that I went to in Amsterdam. So I spent 3 weeks in Europe in end of May, June, and I saw Armin van Buuren's This Is Me show, where he played, I think, just under 3 hours. And he played his stuff, but Armin's, in my opinion, a great DJ where he will go, and play anything that he thinks a fan should like or that would work within a DJ set. So it's nice to see that, he did go almost 3 hours. So it's almost twice as long as the Swedish House Mafia show. And there were no openers for Armin. He just came out, show started at 9 or 9:15, 9:30, and he played till just under, maybe it was like 12:15. So it's quite some time, but similar production, if not the same, I would say, as like Swedish House Mafia, but he also brought out special guests and vocalists. So it really would have been nice to see that, because my benchmarks for, I guess, electronic music artist concerts are Kygo, who always brings out a special guest, especially if he's doing like a stadium tour. Armin brought out, I think, 9 vocalists or special guests to join him on stage as part of his collaborations with artists. And I think that was missing from it, because as much as I enjoyed, watching Swedish House Mafia, it would have been nice to see some of the artists that were on the album, or some of the vocalists that were on the album as well, join them on stage, just to make it that much more of an experience for the new album. Because I think in the arena, there's definitely a more emotive reaction to Swedish House Mafia until now, or their early 2010s era. For sure. And I think there are a lot of fans that went because of their old stuff, and there were definitely, I would say, lack of reactions for their new album. And I think a lot of people might have been confused or maybe underwhelmed with their new productions and how different their style is. But I think when you bring out an artist to sing, let's say Heaven Takes You Home, if you bring out Connie Constance or someone else on the album, I think the fans get into it more, and it's more of a performance where, I think if you're going to electronic artist that performs as a DJ, you just appreciate them as a DJ, but it just takes it one step further into how a show can be and the production that you can put on, in my opinion. So I think that would have been nice to see. And I think as a electronic music fan and a DJ, I definitely prefer the sets that go longer. And I think fans would like that too. But I think it just gives an artist the option or opportunity to just take fans on this journey. And I think that's what Swedish House Mafia's reunion set or comeback at Ultra did really well. It's like, it was just this emotional roller coaster, because I think as a Swedish House Mafia fan, we were so excited to see them come back after so many years. I think it was only 5 years at the time. But now 4 years since then. Has it been 4 years? Huh. Okay. I think it would have been really nice to see something more for the fans. And not saying that they didn't do a lot, but from, merchandise to the set time, I think it was just a little underwhelming, in my opinion. Like, I still had a great time, but I think when you hype it up so much, the bar just continues to climb higher. And I think that's a dangerous thing to do, because by Swedish House Mafia is great for, hyping up what their productions are, album, anything like that, tour. They're very good at marketing. But with great hype comes great responsibility. That's really lame, but it's true though. If you're going to say this is the stadium tour, this is what we're bringing, I think fans are going to expect a little more. And I think as a super fan or as an electronic music person, DJ, the bar's leveled up because of all of that. I think you got to meet them there. And with their merch, it was kind of disappointing because it's literally, 3 dots, and maybe I'll overlay 3 dots on a shirt, but that's for the most part what was on the shirts. And there's a lot of tour merch that just said tour. And I don't know who would buy that if it wasn't Swedish House Mafia merch, because I want to get something with Swedish House Mafia on it, or a lyric from one of their songs, or like a track list, which I think they did have a track list merch, but it didn't really speak to the fan, I would say. Comparing again to their one last tour, a lot of their merch was really bold and really spoke to the movement of the electronic dance music and rave culture, I would say, where there's lots of, bright colors. I know that's not really the branding of SHM nowadays, but there was like, we come, we rave, we love shirts and other things that, spoke to their music and kind of identified them as their artists and you as a fan kind of thing. And I think that just wasn't there. And I definitely am someone who's super minimal. And, most of my videos, I'm just wearing a plain black shirt. But for merch, I just, I just Swedish House Mafia or something on something would have been a little better. I still might buy some merchandise because I'd like to. I think it's nice to commemorate going to a show like that. And as much as you have the videos and everything, you do have that tangible article of clothing that you can kind of wear around. And I just would like to see a better variety of merch that didn't all look like a black. I like the black, but it's just the fact that it's just 3 white dots. And I know that's their logo and their icon, but it's a tough sell, especially when it comes to merch, to just put that. And I think Swedish House Mafia isn't big enough or that recognizable enough to know that the 3 white dots or the 3 dots, 3 circles tell people that Swedish House Mafia. I don't think there's that correlation anymore. There might have been early 2010s, but I think for branding perspective, just make Swedish House Mafia the thing that's marketed and represented by your fans. And I know the style of the album artwork was the stretched font that, went top to bottom with Paradise Again, but it's illegible. You can't read it, and it just made it look like, oh, I don't even know what that says. I think it was just, I would have liked to see more variety and just more Swedish House Mafia branded, like wordmark, instead of the 3 dots on a shirt, or just tour. The amount of tour merch merch that said tour on it was just kind of upsetting, because it's like, why would I buy that? Like, I understand it's a tour, but no one else is going to understand. It's like, are you going on tour? Is tour the artist? Is tour a brand kind of thing? It's just kind of confusing when it comes to that. Ticket prices were high. I don't think that the hype matches the ticket prices. I think it's a tough sell for any artist, in my opinion, to ask thousands of dollars for a ticket. I know people pay it, and there are artists that are great performers that match that amount. But I think it's a really tough sell, especially for electronic artists, that asking $800 for just a general admission ticket is quite steep. So I think that definitely dampened the, that community that your fan base was built on of the raves or the early electronic music days, where there was just a lot of festivals and a lot of underground performances playing in small clubs or just clubs in general. And the night before Swedish House Mafia came to Toronto, they did a back-to-back with Fred again, and I think Fortet was there as well. And that just looked like the party to be at. And inside, it's like, okay, I'd rather go to something like that as like a super fan or a Swedish House Mafia fan than kind of their stadium performance. it would have been two different experiences, but I would have liked to see the experience from their underground back to back in a warehouse kind of vibe. I think it just would have been really cool to get to experience that and get to see what they are like instead of this big band silhouette kind of thing. And again, it's not that I didn't enjoy it. I just think it can be better. I think I'm definitely about the fan experience, work in marketing, about, the customer experience, and the client experience. So that's my perspective that I bring to the table. And I think it's interesting to see how the show and the tour will play out and see if it'll evolve after the first couple shows, because I only think there's been 3 shows so far. So it's very early in the Paradise Again tour. And, I only want fans to get the best Swedish House Mafia experience. And I think for a super fan, it's a must see. I'll go out that far and say it's a must see because it feels like this mega mix of Swedish House Mafia through the years. And I think their sound's so relevant to where electronic music is at right now with kind of the darker, lower tempo kind of stuff. And I had a lot of fun. I think I was really genuinely happy to be there. And I had this, smile on my face that was just really nice to see. And I think it just shows you how passionate I think you can be about music or the connection you can have with artists such as Swedish House Mafia. So I think it's just nice to have that connection with an artist or just be that excited to see them again and connect with their music or reconnect with their music. And I think it was definitely something that I missed. I miss Swedish House Mafia, and I've talked a lot about Swedish House Mafia on this channel, and my YouTube channel is basically a Swedish House Mafia fan page at this time. So I know a lot of you were interested to see what I had to say or what I thought about this show because, where's the hype at? And it's relatively early in the tour, like I said. So, it was a great time. It was really memorable. It was different feeling from the last tour, but yeah, it was good. My voice is still a little from just singing or shouting last night because I got really into it, and it was a good time. Beer was super expensive. It was a $18 Heineken because I didn't look at the menu, but if you're from Toronto or arena pricing, it's expected. Thank you for watching the video. If you went to Swedish House Mafia's Paradise Again, what did you think? Are you a Swedish House Mafia super fan? Are you, just electronic music fan? Are you debating about going or thinking about going? Did this help? What kind of questions do you have about the show? I'm sure there's going to be someone recording the set at some point that you can find online. But super fans would love the show, and I love the show. I have these two perspectives, but I did love the show. And like I said, I'm rambling. So stay tuned for more videos. I don't know what Swedish House Mafia is going to put out in the future, but I do talk more about electronic music, and I'll always take suggestions too. So maybe we'll do some album reviews from years ago, and